Vice Chairman Gina, the time is 5:29. Do you have a meeting to order?
Sure, it's always better to be ahead of schedule than behind. Why don't we go ahead and call the Emergency Services Council for February the 20th, 2025. Call the meeting to order, please. We have a lot of new folks, so welcome to those, and we're going to do roll call. And if your city is called, if you would please introduce yourself in case we haven't met each other prior.
Atherton.
Diana Hawkins Manuelian, council member.
Belmont.
Tom McEwen, President, City Council. from Belmont.
Brisbane. Burlingame.
Andrea Papajohn, council member.
Colma.
Harry Slaughter, vice mayor of the noble necropolis of Colma.
Daly City.
I always have to follow this one.
We're waiting for you too.
I love Colby, 3:40 alive.
Yes.
Glenn Sylvester, Daly City, and currently the vice mayor. Thank you.
East Palo Alto.
I'm Martha Garrigan, the mayor of East Palo Alto. First time.
Foster City.
Susie Niederhofer, council member.
Half Moon Bay.
Patrick Johnson, council.
Hillsborough.
Sophie Cole, mayor.
Menlo Park. Millbrae.
Steve Rinaldi, council member.
Pacifica.
Christine Bowles, mayor pro tem, which is the same as vice mayor.
Portola Valley.
Rebecca Flynn, council member, alternate.
Redwood City.
Kaya Aiken, vice mayor.
San Bruno.
Rico Medina, Mayor, San Bruno.
San Carlos.
John Dugan, council member.
San Mateo.
Rob Newsom, mayor.
South San Francisco.
Eddie Flores, the mayor.
Woodside.
Paul Gold, vice mayor.
And County of San Mateo.
And County of San Mateo is Lisa, supervisor, and some of her team is in the audience to make sure that we stay on track. And we give a good report back for them to go back to her. She will be here at the next meeting. So with that, again, welcome to everyone. Thank you to the staff and the team that brought us together. I know there are a lot of new folks, so I am going to try to get to this meeting and be mindful of everyone's time. As you know, they had these books. So the test today was who read it. They're going to come up in front of us, and then you will guess their name. So, but no, you can see these after, but they spent a lot of time. I want to thank everybody for what they do and being here. At this time, let's move on to item number 2, public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay. Public comment is reserved for persons wishing to address the Emergency Services Council on any Emergency Services Council related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda.
There being no public comments, we may have Cliff Lentz, Mayor of Brisbane, on the line, so that can be noted, please. On item 3, action to set agenda and approve consent items. Any questions or discussion on that? Any action? Don't be shy.
I'll second.
Daly City motion, South San Francisco second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That is a way to start our first meeting. Item number 4, new finance committee designate. It is in your packet, and I do want to thank staff because it is nice to have everything here. We needed to have a new member for the admin finance committee. Supervisor felt it was important to have a broad base and have somebody from the coast, and we did have a volunteer. You get paid no more, you just have more meetings. So but I appreciate your interest, and the supervisor wanted to thank you for your willingness. but it does require a vote. Are there any questions or comments? If not, can I have action from the board?
To approve, Glenn Sylvester, Daly City.
Second.
Okay. I know, but now we have Daly City once again, and we have Burlingame as a second to go ahead and approve for the new finance committee designee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. And mark down your calendar for all those meetings. Item 5, joint exercise of powers agreement update to our director.
Thank you so much, Emergency Services Council. I want to recognize all of you for the work you have done in getting this revised copy of the agreement through your city councils. We just have 3 more to go. And so the next steps is that Town of Portola Valley, who has it on their agenda, City of San Mateo, when they have finished going through that phase, then it will actually go to the Board of Supervisors. And then once all of that is done, then it will go back to your cities for a DocuSign. So we have signatures on file. So we are very, very close. So thank you everyone for taking the time.
Are there any questions or comments from council? Daly City.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to first thank Dr. Trudy for working on this revised edition of the MOU. Currently, the previous one that we had was archaic and actually came before some of the city managers all the way back in, I believe it was October. And we had a little snafu. And the snafu was that our biggest stakeholders, which is the police chiefs and the fire chiefs, didn't have a chance to weigh in. And Dr. Shirley took this and says, yes, that does make sense. We sent the draft out, had a meeting, and had all the police chiefs and the fire chiefs come up with suggestions. And those suggestions were incorporated in this new. So I'm very proud of that, and thank you so much.
You're welcome, and we did have a meeting here, the director, Warren Slocum, myself, so the chair and the vice chair, with some of the fire chiefs to go over in more detail. So a lot of work was done to get to this point. So thank you to all of your cities, your managers, your clerks for getting this process. If nothing else, then we'll move on to item 6. Set dates for future ESC meetings, which will require a vote. And again, that's item 6. Packet. As you can see, there are 2 sets of meetings. The ones that will affect the majority of you is the ESC meeting, which the next one would be April 16th. Is there any concerns or comments or questions regarding the recommended calendar for the 2025 years? Yes.
Portola Valley Town Council meets the 2nd and 4th Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So I'm the alternate, but the main person may either have to leave early or connect through Zoom.
And I was going to say, as long as we have it listed here on the agenda, they certainly can do Zoom. Absolutely. Like that's where we have this Brisbane is trying to do both tonight. The mayor.
Through the chair.
South San Francisco.
I also have that same conflict, so I'll state for the record that June 11th, I'll probably be on Zoom. As we also have a council meeting 2nd and 4th Wednesday.
And through the chair, Coma also has the 2nd and 4th, so that June date will be.
So it's the June date specifically for South City Colma, correct? And then for Portola Valley, it falls directly on your council meetings.
Our council meetings start at 7,
Yeah.
so there'd be no way to get there.
No.
If we're
Not even if there was no traffic. No. So we have that as an alternative, if that's okay with Portola Valley, and we can see how that goes, and then we can talk to the supervisor to see if there needs to be any additional modifications. I don't know. But with that, can we go ahead and just tentatively, can we go ahead and agree to what we have, and if we need to adjust, we can come back and do that at a later date. Okay, so can I get a motion now? Second.
Move approval.
Thank you.
San Carlos seconds.
Thank you. I want to thank Carlos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for letting us know. Item 7, Nature's Powerhouse. A lot of things listed, and so we are going to go with some things that happened, obviously, since we last met last year. And so the assistant director is going to go ahead and update us, educate us, and enlighten us.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. I know a lot of you new faces out here. I'm Ryan Reynolds. I'm the Assistant Director for the Department of Emergency Management. We're going to talk about some of the events that have happened over the last few months that have been gentle reminders to us that we want to use to make sure that not only we at DEM are being prepared, that you at your individuals are being prepared. And we're talking with our citizens, making sure they have that individual preparedness. So on December 5th, there was an earthquake in Mendocino. We all got a lovely tsunami warning. We recognized that the language in that was unclear. It went to large numbers of people and it caused a lot of panic. We at DEM have been developing a lot of tools that we'll be able to share. A lot of public outreach that we want to continue with this. We recognize being able to share that material ahead of time, communicating with those people, letting them know what the issues are really critical. We plan on putting that out during National Tsunami Week, which is in the month of March. We had a tornado warning in San Francisco, in part of Daly City, and no tornado. And then in Scotts Valley that same day, no tornado warning, and they did have a tornado, which is a good reminder that you can't have tornadoes here. You just want to be cognizant that if you get one of these alerts, do what it says. Don't expect us to put out an SMC alert for these things. We don't necessarily have more information or more relevant information, and these generally have a very short window, but they can happen here. So make sure that we're aware of that. In January, we had a small earthquake off San Francisco. Last week, we had 4 additional earthquakes on the Hayward Fault, very small, but all very good reminders that basically in the next 30 years, we have a 70% chance of a 7.0 or a very large earthquake, something that we need to prepare for. When we think about a 7.0 earthquake around the world, lots and lots of damage, very destructive, lots of loss of life. Here we've had building code updates in the 1970s and the 1990s. These have led to much less destruction, much less loss of life, but they still are very powerful. There's still a lot of things that occur. And so there's still going to be a lot of things that are impacted. I think that the key thing I want to leave with you is that, and for your jurisdictions, is that it's going to impact a lot more than just loss of life or damaged buildings, water systems, wastewater systems, transportation, soft storage, communication. It's really going to impact all the departments in your city. It's more than just the emergency services. It is a lot more than that. And so making sure that we're ready for that and we work with them and they're all working on their emergency plans and they're updating those. Obviously, we had the devastating wildfires in Southern California this year that were quite horrific. We've done a lot of work on that, understanding that really those were driven by really, really high winds. You have these really dry, really high winds, you're not going to be able to put that fire out. So we want to pass on the message that having good situational awareness, people leaving early, understanding what routes they can get out, packing a go bag, these things are extremely important. From that, we also want to have a layered approach. It's work that's done here at DEM. You at the municipal level, which is very critical, working with your different agencies, understand the planning, but also putting that emphasis on the individual resident or citizen. One thing we want to encourage is FireWise communities. They're similar to CERT or a neighborhood watch. They're a grassroots within the community, teaches them about home hardening, about defensible space, about things that are really, really critical for them to know about. If you want to have more, we can have an offline conversation about that. We gave a presentation in the city of San Bruno about FireWise communities, so to their emergency preparedness committee, to let them know a little bit more. So what are we doing? We have some short-term approaches that we're working on. We're working on finishing up the all hazards evacuation plan that Dr. Shruti will tell about in a little bit. We're exercising. We're doing a wildfire exercise here on March the 10th. We're working on our alert and warning templates. We have an alert and warning coordinator now. Lalo over there does all our alert and warning. And he's creating new templates for 40 different types of hazards. Another thing that we learned out of the LA fires was having that clear and concise messaging is really critical. Lalo's working with a world-renowned professor in this, having her review our templates, making sure that they're the highest caliber and that we can quickly and accurately communicate information. We're also going to work on a community assessment to understand what our populations need before, during, and after any emergencies. We're also developing some disaster service worker training materials. These can be used for your cities to train their city staff for how they may act in the Emergency Operations Center. Or midterm or longer term, we're working on overhauling our website so that we can quickly and clearly put information out there. We're starting to work on the local hazard mitigation plan. All of your jurisdictions have signed up to take part of that, along with 15 special districts. Sanchi here is in charge of that. That's done every 5 years. It's a major lift. We're also updating the county's emergency operation plan. The last one was done in 2015, I believe. It was under the sheriff's office. We've had a lot of changes since then, so making sure it reflects what we actually do now. And then also we're working on getting grants, the ability to do more mitigation and other tools. Longer term, we want to have more mitigation projects, fuel management, fuel mitigation. How do we look at evacuation routes, some of these other things? That's it for me.
That's it? We're gonna stop right there?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. And now let's see if there's questions from the council. And I'll start over with South City, and I'll just go around the room once, if that's okay. If you do, just raise your hand.
Yeah, thanks for the work and presentation. I didn't hear much about communication, and we don't see this built into communication in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, so I really wanted to be high nails and talk about, some of the things that have happened. We're happy to take any specific questions that you have. I don't know that we would be the best one to ask for those right now in the moment. But, we have redundancy in radio communication. Here at the EOC, we have redundancy in our internet. We have microwave phones, we have satellite telephones, we have high frequency radios, we have UFH radios, VHF radios. A lot of that is done in partnership with the sheriff's office. So I don't know the full level of specifics, but we do have a lot of redundancy and ability to communicate out of this building.
Just a follow-up, please. Is there a mechanism by which local community or municipality could partner with the county to improve its communication, especially in the event of an emergency?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just so you all know, there is a direct phone line at one of your, either it's a PD or a fire station, that is a copper wire line that runs to this building. So let's say there is from Hillsborough, there is a line, copper line that comes directly to this building. So we would still have communication with the municipality, even if internet was down, everything else was down, because that copper line is the safest.
So that couple lines is fixed. What about fiber optic? Do you also have that on top of couple lines? In the event of an earthquake, would that affect the couple lines?
We have multiple fiber optic lines that come into this building that come from different hubs within the region. So we're as redundant as we can be. And then we have satellite internet. We have 5 different ways to bring internet into here, including multiple fiber optic backups.
Great. Thank you.
And I wanted to follow up again on that radio telecommunication thing, because it turns out in Portola Valley, even our fire department has trouble from their building alone accessing that secret communication radio thing where the fire people work together, communicate when they're at a fire. So they're telling us that any resident that does a building project, major building project, has to install their own antenna or some such thing because the coverage is so bad. So I don't know that they're saying that the nearest tower is up in Brisbane or some such thing. So I don't really understand this idea of being covered with coverage.
So I think we're thinking about many different layers of communication. So I think what you may be thinking about is the communication to the communities.
No. This is the communication that the fire.
Radio infrastructure.
Yeah, yes, when
Yeah.
the sheriff and the fire use a specialized communication when they're out servicing a call.
Yeah.
And they're not able to access the radios or something
Yeah.
because the signal's not strong.
We belong to the fire service. And so they belong to a tertiary company. We can definitely ask them to come and report out on that specific thing if you'd like. But we don't have any, it's beyond our scope of responsibilities.
So it's not linked to this other.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Questions? Daly City.
My colleagues put together a meeting that we had yesterday, we discussed the communications aspect. I'm glad that Dr. Rudy made mention about the POTS, plain old telephone system, which consists of copper wires, because you have some constituents who, regardless of the increase in technology, whether going voice over IP or through fiber optics, still prefer POTS, which quite frankly is a legacy system. But to hear that we have the redundancy in place, that's good to hear as well. If there's any recommendation that I can make, that's maybe getting more information on portable microwave antennas or towers to transmit signal. We have two different aspects. We have the community ability to get resources, and then once we do get the resources, we need uniformity in, say, law enforcement, police, fire, to communicate with each other. And I'm sure that that's what this body of folks do, is to try to ensure that at least we can talk on the same channel, which I think is very important.
Absolutely.
Just a couple of comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask what the AI modeling was.
I skipped right over that. So we have a software called Ladris that does evacuation modeling. And so we would be rolling out a plan to work with the city's law and fire so that they can use it for our planning purposes.
Does that work with Genesis?
It does. So the Genesis zones are incorporated so that they can use those for planning purposes, but they don't work directly together. No.
Then Redwood City, then Cemetery.
I have a question specifically about the tsunami event, and there are obviously a lot of lessons learned, at least in our community in Pacifica. People wondering why the sirens weren't going off, but people are getting notices like evacuate immediately on their phones, and then the school districts evacuated 3 of our schools. Some of them apparently didn't need to evacuate, and then they called it off and asked parents to come pick up their kids, which meant they were driving in the tsunami zone and backing up traffic. I'm just wondering when, like, is there an official debrief lesson learned? I mean, I know you work directly with our police department, but how does the information get back to the community?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that in a couple of ways. So right afterwards, we do debriefs with the law and fire. We did a debrief with the school, those community members, your town manager, and Half Moon Bay and the other communities, so that we can understand kind of everything that's gone on there, because that's that first critical phase. We're taking all that information, we're creating materials that can then be shared with the community. We're trying to do more community outreach. It's one of those critical things where we have to be able to push that out, but there's such a long duration between these that there's some staleness in that information. So we've also built some additional tools that when one of those happens, some online maps that we'll be able to share in the event of one of those. This was really a unique situation where you had kind of an earthquake that may or may not have done a tsunami. The cutoff for whether or not we get that is 250 kilometers. It was 245. And so there were a lot of perfect things that worked out. They have 5 minutes to make that decision. And then there's not a lot of time, and they're not going to put anything out for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it was really a complicated situation for us. What we recognize from that is we need better information to share, right? That community outreach, having those materials. So we're actively working and testing those and want to be able to deliver those during National Tsunami Week.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. San Mateo is.
Well, to piggyback on what Christine was just talking about, City of San Mateo and Foster City have 3 high schools. And when the tsunami warning happened, they dismissed all the students from school, which caused pretty, really adds to the chaos. And so, in where we are geographically located, even if the tsunami had impacted us, it would have only been flooding. The safest procedure would have been to have them shelter in place and get to higher ground within the schools. And so I was just wondering if there been, and then to caveat to that, about less than a month after San Mateo, part of Hillsborough and Foster City had a power outage that lasted most of the day, And again, the schools decided that it was better to let the kids go home, which again, really impacts the whole community. And really what I worry about is if it had been a real thing, like a tsunami was actually hitting, the last thing we want is to have hundreds of high school students, free on the streets. So I'm just wondering, has there been any outreach or communication to the schools as a follow-up? And can we make sure that we get best practices for them going forward? Because most of the time, I think the right answer is that they should be sheltering in place and staying as opposed to trying to.
Yeah, so we have one of our coordinators who works on the Safe School Council. He's worked with them on tsunamis. He's very passionate about the tsunami subject. We'll make sure that he takes that information and passes it along.
Thank you.
Have we done any, by the way, nice presentation, I appreciate it. Have we done any real-time live evacuation drills?
We have, so we did one in El Granada last year and then one in Palomar Park.
Because we're looking at doing one, and I think we could use some help. So
Absolutely.
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're happy.
Any other, we'll go back one more time in South San Francisco, then Portola Valley.
Thank you, Rob, for bringing that up. Equally, the community college district, College of San Mateo has now expanded to the coast side. So there wasn't a lot of guidance and communication. It's always at the municipality level, but if that could also be included in terms of outreach to the public information officers as well.
Absolutely.
Could you clarify a little bit more about the Ladris technology contract?
Take that one.
Sure, absolutely. So we, the Emergency Services Council basically had asked DEM to do the all hazard evacuation planning. A plan like that takes a lot of time and it requires subject matter expertise in that very specific field. So modeling, usually you get 3 scenarios, you get modeling, and those cases, if you will, takes like 9-10 months to create those case scenarios. So we decided to go an alternate route. And so we bought a software called Ladris, which does AI evacuation modeling. It also has live data traffic as well. And so what we are doing is we used it internally to see how it's working, and we tested it last year, what we're doing, and we build a base plan using that. What the plan is to roll it out to the cities for evacuation planning purposes. It can be used for many things. That software can be used for many things. One of the ways it can be used is for planning, for example, right? So you can basically put a road and say, oh, this road would then, do X, Y, Z, or so we can only offer so much support on that tool, evacuation specific support. If there are other support needed, the city would have to buy it. Like if you are doing really, really deep, planning, you're putting a 450, housing unit or something, and you're looking at planning those types of things. So, so it's, we bought it for the whole,
So I guess, let me think how to question this. Ladris provides different modules. So they provide an evacuation module. They provide also fire spread module.
Yep.
But it sounds like you have only purchased the evacuation
Correct.
module. And then, so the Woodside Fire Protection District, along with Woodside and Portola Valley, have also purchased at a very, very expensive rate, the Ladris technology as well. So I'm just wondering how much duplication is happening, because frankly, Portola Valley can't afford the $20,000 a year for Ladris technology, but we have absolutely nobody in our staff or in our emergency preparedness committee left who can actually use the software, because there's a learning curve. So I'm just wondering if we could cooperate a little bit more and find out what exactly you have and whether it would suffice for our needs.
yeah, happy to chat with you offline.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Last time, let's throw them to the city.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a follow-up on I know this is part of the long-term planning. mitigation efforts, defensible spaces, widening of roads, specifically defensible spaces. Are there any grants from from this entity for local municipalities that they could apply for to help do fire mitigation in open spaces that are not owned by private residents?
There are none currently. We are exploring some. We're looking at applying for them, but I will be honest, there is a lot of uncertainty about what is and is not going to happen with these grants. With the change in administration, the grants that we are applying for now, they're not certain if they're going to move forward or what they're going to be. So that's actually a very difficult question for me to answer, but we're going to continue to explore and continue to apply for those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I appreciate the questions that are here from around the room. I'm especially interested in particular software that we spoke about, that Joel spoke about. I believe we have a presentation sometime ago showing an evacuation plan in case of a fire or something. Would it be possible to give a demonstration for?
So it was the same exact software. But yeah, if we want a secondary presentation, we can work with you on that.
Yeah, maybe about 10 minutes. Refresh also, idea. And we know that it can be some sort of collaboration that can come out as a result of that. I think we're totally in the don't ask, don't get, and we work together.
Absolutely.
With the city of Atherton, we charged our city staff to look at AI traffic modeling. And you said that with this, as part of our participation with you, we get use of the evacuation. Is there a tier that we buy just a tier higher if we want to use it for planning? And do we talk to you or do we go to Lazarus directly?
I don't know that their software is necessarily set up for planning and like general plan use. I think we could have that conversation with them and then it would probably be with you, but I think the methods that their software uses really about evacuation and not really for planning purposes. We're happy to explore that.
I think it might be along the same lines. So you mentioned earlier that you would be rolling it out to our city. So how soon would you be doing that? We're in the process of updating our emergency preparedness plan within the city. So I just wanted to know when you would be rolling out the evacuation modeling of the software.
Yeah, so our exercise, I believe, is on March 10th. So after that is when we'll be rolling it out. And that is for the specific purpose of making sure that each of the cities use it for their part of the evacuation planning.
Well, addressing Portola Valley and just that we've had quite a bit of discussion about software and IT and all this kind of stuff. I've noticed in Redwood City, what I've seen, this is just anecdotal, sometimes Redwood City will use a negotiated price for a software product that's been negotiated from a Southern California town that I've never heard of. But it's like a negotiated sort of agreement that I don't quite understand, but I've seen it. And I don't know, it's just an example of cooperating where we're all governments, we all have these needs. These are for-profit technology companies. You know, it's easier for them to divide and conquer. And maybe there's some innovative ways for us to get some economies of scale, especially in this current situation where federal funds are maybe not going to be as plentiful as they have been in the prior 4 years.
Great, then, anything else? Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for the questions. Discussion. With that, we're going to move on to item 8, strategic plan update. Turn it over to our director.
So over the last 6 months, we've been working on our strategic plan. We've held listening sessions with more than 175 participants and 86 organizations, law, fire, CBOs, some elected officials, county departments. And the question was, what is working, where can we improve, and what are some new opportunities? And so while we were doing these listening sessions, we kept on getting the question, what does Department of Emergency Management do? Which was interesting. So what we do is different in the situation that we're in. So in blue skies, when everything is working perfectly normal, it's about relationship building, it's about planning, it's about exercising and doing drills. In gray skies, what we do is increase readiness, provide operational area coordination, situational awareness. And then in gray skies or in dark skies, we would activate the EOC, resource management, liaison with the state or federal agencies. So an example of this would be storms, right? So we plan for storms. We work with the National Weather Service ahead of time. We know when the storms are coming, we're following it closely. So that's blue skies. And then gray skies is when we actually send all this information to our partners, including law, fire, EMS, public safety dispatch, maybe coordinate calls with the National Weather Service, and provide that overall situation awareness. If there are any unmet needs, then, you know, focus on those unmet needs. Like, for example, an unmet need could be, we need, you know, more signs because this area is flooded and our DPW doesn't have more signs. And then in dark skies, we actually activate the EOC and do resource management. So an example of this was recently in South San Francisco, there was an evacuation of a facility. And, you know, South San Francisco was doing a great job. They activated the surge, they had it under control, but they asked for mutual aid. And so what we did was we got all the county departments together that were relevant. We made sure that those folks got to where they're supposed to go and made sure that, you know, South San Francisco had all of their needs taken care of in a very quick time frame. And then if we wouldn't be able to do that, we would actually ask the state for help as well. That's or feds for help as well. So that was the big takeaways, like what do we do? And the other things that came about from the gap analysis was that we need better training. We need to activate our resources faster. We need coordinated systems, and we need to have continuous gap assessment. Emergency communication was a big foundation, and then tending to vulnerable population. So that is our framework of how we got to our strategic plan. And so based on that, what we heard in all of these listening sessions was every single one of these folks wanted us to be a very resilient county. Whether it was a CBO or a business or a city manager. And so these are the three lenses that we're looking at everything. So connection, capability, and communication. So we're going to address those gaps using these three lenses. And based on that, we basically have a brand new logo. So you will no longer see the old department DEM logo, which was often confused with a political organization. And we will no longer call ourselves DEM. We will just call ourselves Emergency Management, County's Emergency Management. So we have a new logo, and the logo represents the four phases of emergency management: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. And the pinwheel represents the north is community. To the right is all the cities and towns. To the south is our emergency management partners, and to the left-hand side is all of law and fire and EMS. So this is how we came up with our logo, and we just want to let you know that you will be seeing a different face of DEM. So with that comes a brand new vision. And the vision is to become the most resilient county in the United States by 2030. So where are we going with the strategic plan? The strategic plan was just sent out this week. We're looking for stakeholder input by March 14th, and we'll finalize the strategic plan by April 1st.
Thank you very much for that report. Questions or comments from council members? Go around the room. South San Francisco.
I just wanted to uplift Director Shreedi's comment. This past Sunday at 9 a.m., we had about 38 displaced individuals. It was an industrial hotel. And the coordination, I mean, I was reading it, getting text phones, and the level of support received not only from county EMS, but also San Bruno Fire, North County Fire as well, was just outstanding. It's the model of what should be, right? By 9 a.m. this happened. By 7 p.m. all of the 38 displays had found, and it was a very particular, I can't give the details, type group that we were dealing with, but I want to thank you and the team for outstanding, even on a Sunday, being there to respond. So appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Daly City.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the presentation. I love it. I'm seeing the old logo should have it there because of time, and I can understand. I'm just wondering, did you folks change that logo in the jackets? No, this is just something to think about. Thanks to Councilmember Greg Wright, who spoke earlier, Pacifica. He asked me a question, which I think is very, very important, and that's for our first responders. How many first responders live in your city? So they most likely have to commute. And I can give you an example. I do know one first responder who flies into Utah to come work the shift, and then after the shift, has 40 hours, 3 days straight, or something like that, he flies back home. So in cases of an emergency, would that, to have that information, would that be information that's good to know, especially when you talk about AI modeling, and putting this information and data mining. I think it would be a tremendous help for our particular cities. I do understand privacy concerns. Well, but basically you can live wherever you want to live, as long as you come in and do your work and do your job. But I think for responses, and we're talking about instituting mutual aid, so it might be something that just think about. The strategic plan. Thank you so much.
Well, just that I participated in some of the outreach that you did, and I couldn't believe the caliber of people that were in my little subgroups. I learned so much from them. One was some expert at Stanford University in toxic something or other, and he was the regional director before that for the entire Northwest, and his questions and concerns were fascinating. Anyway, great job of outreach. I really enjoyed participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I was like one of those old jackets. Predecessor had, I was like, get the jacket. I like it.
You can thank Warren.
So on that, city council member or vice mayor, right? We have an issue with our staffing in Hackman Bay because nobody lives in town. They're all working remote. And when we had an emergency, here's our city manager that, we're not asking him to work on Saturday and Sundays, but when we had an issue going on, we're worried about, he had to delegate to somebody else. And somebody didn't have a key, couldn't open City Hall. And so we have that little problem where nobody's there. We only have a handful. I mean, Dave lives out on the coast with us, but I don't think you have keys to the City Hall. But that was one of the problems that we're having. Is that something that we're looking at also, like who's on board and who's on your staff? It's local that can address things, or how does that work? I mean, is that something that's not even relevant?
So we don't have the authority to come into a city and do what the city so all disasters are local. Each city needs to have a continuity of operations plan. So if those things have come up, it would be good for each of the cities to look at what their continuity of operation plan is and move that along. We could not replace your staff.
That's something we work on in-house, make sure we have somebody that delegates and do the chain command.
Yeah, and that's something that the county is working on too, in terms of its training of our own disaster service workers. We have to know where they live because we have to know who we're going to be able to get here immediately to stand the EOC up in a timely fashion. So I think each city needs to really understand how they're going to make it through the first 12 hours of any disaster and who's going to be there. That's really important.
And those 12 hours are usually very chaotic. And there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of things that are happening. So having those people trained up ahead of time is really important.
You may want to ask the city manager if there's a binder that basically has the operations plan. See the last time that was done in San Bruno. You would think we would have the most updated one for what we experienced, but still needs to be redone again. So I think you'd be surprised, and we'll say, well, not many things have changed. Well, a lot of things have changed. And even when San Bruno had emergency services that came in, e.g. pipeline explosion, it is the city manager who takes control. And it is that person who's in charge, and they don't have the ability, when we ask for help, they came, but they don't have the ability to come in and say, I'm now in charge, and then delegate out to staff. But a big, great question for the city manager.
I got one more. I hate to delay this meeting. We have a lot of folks down south in Kenyatta Cove, and the mobile homes kind of a situation, and they're already upset about there's no internet. It goes out, the phones, the mobile phones don't work, and I literally walk around. I have lots of friends there, and you can literally walk. Oh, look, I got service. So they're worried about when there's an emergency that comes into play, because they already have crappy service as is, and then you put that, and they're at that age group where they're have anxiety about an emergency right now, and we just had power out for them, and they're like 3 days without power, so they're already kind of worked up. Is there a plan where, like, we're talking about all these different like CERT? I think you guys do CERT, which is no, okay. So in that program, I guess they have radios, they have handheld radios or something like that. Is that something we should probably try to get those people involved with, so that they have like a backup plan?
We can definitely talk to you offline about it.
Okay.
All right, thank you all. Next, we'll move on to item 9, director's update, please.
So I have 3 key things I would like to talk to you about: the all hazard evacuation planning, the CRISP plan, and then also our community outreach. For all hazard evacuation plan, we have developed a base plan. So I want to clarify something. Usually evacuations are a law enforcement function, and we at the Department of Emergency Management do not have any authority to call an evacuation order. However, this was something that the Emergency Services Council wanted, so we have developed a base plan, and the rollout of this is going to be each of the cities is going to get a work plan so they can work through their own cities, hazards, and also evacuation routes. And LADRIS is going to be part of that rollout. Once we do that, we're actually going to, I think that's going to take a little bit of time for each of your cities to work through that process, because we cannot come into your city and decide what law enforcement or fire would do in a certain situation. And so we are conducting an exercise with law and fire and EMS March 6th or 10th. We have sent out invites to emergency managers, law and fire entities already to learn more, to add to our base plan, and then we are rolling this out. I am speaking to the fire chiefs associations and the police chiefs associations as well. It is up to your jurisdiction to decide how much of that work plan you want to do and how much of it you do not want to do. But we will complete our base plan and then we will exercise it as well. Any questions about that? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on the library's access, is that something that the municipality will need to purchase with the county, or is it provided by the county too?
We're providing it.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. True, thank you so much. And that's what I made mention about earlier. The change in the MOU reflected what EM,
emergency
management. Okay, had put out recommendations and with the resources that they have, and the police and fire chiefs came back and says, well, no, each city is different and they all have different needs, and it should be left up to the experts in that particular city to decide. Thank you for emergency management to come in and assist us, but the authority rests with each individual city. And I see that that's listed under short term, and that's, you're already implementing it, even though it hasn't been signed off by the council. But that's the issue.
Questions or comments, colleagues?
Thank you. Does the ladder system connect in with what was Zone Haven, now Genesis? So the public actually sees evacuation routes and like the time it would take you to, you know.
So they're two different user entities. So Ladris is for people that are planning evacuations. It's not necessarily for the public. The Zone Haven or the Genesis zones, those zones belong to us as a county. So we can basically take that base layer and apply it to anywhere. And we have applied that to Ladris. So you would see the same exact zones that you would see in Zone Haven platform. So we're all talking the same exact nomenclature. So we're not changing that.
Okay. But that will be able to give real-time traffic information to a person who gets.
Yeah, there is real-time traffic information on it. Yeah.
But I think is your question whether in the event of an emergency, just a citizen could log into Ladris and find out what's the best way to get out of
Or
here?
not to Ladris, but that the information in Genesis would help them see which way, you know, specifically to get out and the time it would take. If you're trying to make a decision about when to leave.
So it's not for the public.
It's not for the public.
It's not for the public.
So, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you.
Lower Valley, then Hillsborough, please.
What was the date again for your event, for the orientation for this?
March 10th.
Hillsborough.
Yeah, just to follow up on that question about the integration of Ladris and Zone Haven Genesis. So in the event of an emergency, if a resident were to log into Zone Haven, which is what most people are familiar with at this point, will the information be so integrated that they'll be able to walk towards Ladris's technology, or?
So basically what happens is that it's the public will see like zone 103 needs to be evacuated, and they'll get the message on their phone. If they have downloaded and they have notifications, they'll get a message. It doesn't have anything to do with Ladris.
Any other final questions or comments? Thank you.
So this is another project, the CRISP project, Coastal Resiliency Infrastructure Strategic Plan, and was something that the emergency Services Council paid for on behalf, and it was sponsored also with Supervisor Mueller. And we have completed the basically getting all the submissions, doing a QA/QI data on the data, and then we have figured out a prioritization matrix, and we've applied it. And the deliverable was a GIS dashboard, which we have created. To learn more, you can come to the March 6th meeting in Supervisor Mueller's office. But we will be walking through this, and this is something that the Emergency Service Council did pay for.
Now it came out of the reserves that we have, and Supervisor Mueller, because of those needs, is what he came before the council. The council had concurred to go ahead and spend some of those reserve monies because we're still at our capacity of what we're required as an organization. Questions or comments? Daly City.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment, and Mr. Chair, you validated it amongst those who weren't here before, where Supervisor Mueller came and made a plea to get this done. And I just wanted to give an acronym to Dr. Shmuley and the crew, and that's GTP. Getting things done.
Other questions or comments? Pacifica.
Sorry, I'm really new to all of this, so there were 106 submissions in terms of ideas for projects that could help resiliency on the coast. Is that
correct? And one was a duplicate, so really it was 105, but yeah,
okay.
There were one of them submitted twice, so it is 106 submissions.
Okay. And so this one GIS dashboard, and we'll learn more about that.
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Lastly, we have a community engagement update. We've done quite a few community engagement events, including coastside CERT leadership, virtual wildfire preparation that had more than 450 people, pizza and prep, where you could actually go around and create your own go bag. So we actually had people there, and the stuff, unfortunately, it was during a time where there was severe thunderstorms. San Bruno, Bel Air School Prep Talk, community, Burlingame Community Preparedness Briefing. So we are going out in the community and doing a lot of one-on-one outreach. I think this year so far, we've reached about a little bit over 600 people, where our staff has interacted with over 600 people and prepared it already this year. Those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any final questions or comments? The director's update. Let's move on to item 10, which are report outs related to Emergency Services Council. So I don't need to know what you're doing this weekend or what's happening in your town, but Service Council related. Any topics or items? We've done consent. The tentative now, new date will be Wednesday, April 16th, 5:30 right here. And I also wanted to acknowledge Greg from Pacifica and Sandy from San Bernardino, who are alternates that are here and getting the taste and the flavor and are ready to step in whenever needed if asked. With that, my friends, everybody, have a safe Friday. And have an enjoyable weekend. Stay safe. Meeting adjourned.